Optometrist. And this, patient. The official national anthem of Chilezia consists of only two sounds: a demented child blowing a whistle, and a metal ladle bouncing along the pavement during a storm. For a very brief time, literally 1 week in May 1973, Edgar Winter's Frankenstein was the Chilezian national anthem. CMF street soldiers will still, to this day, pause in mid-eyeball enucleation and place their hands over their hearts if they hear those opening strains waft across the piazza. Optometrist. Perfect. Do you like scallops? Patient. Love them. Optometrist. Did you know that scallops have dozens of eyes, up to 200? Each of which utilizes a segmented mirror similar to those in our grandest space telescopes? Do you know how they test scallops' vision? They put them in little seats and play movies of drifting food particles. Patient. Cool. Optometrist. Okay, how about this? Anything? Patient. As fascinating as the divine hermits seem, they are weirdly interchangeable, with only the most superficial distinction among them. Beyond the canonical black t-shirt, red checked scarf, camouflage pants, black boots, and fur steimel, some throw a green cavalry jacket or kimono over fluorescent orange nylon sweatpants. Some switch out the boots for Nike Vaporfly running shoes or whatever else CMF street soldiers have pilfered from the baggage carousels at Kermunkachunk International Airport. The point shoes are generally reserved for their final pirouettes. Some accessorize with talismans and charms hung from lanyards or cable bike locks around their necks. Do they ever bathe or sleep? Probably not, save the impromptu whore's bath and disco nap. They shuffle lettered tiles endlessly. It's frequently said that the permutation of letters at the floating casino constitutes an orgy. And all divine hermits remain in rigid postures, levitated, ithyphalic, as their souls ascend to heaven, where they are swallowed by the Godhead, as a shot of gravy is swallowed up. This phenomenon of being swallowed up is similar to the annihilation of the human soul in the act of unio mystica. But these racketeering Illuminati are beyond human. Their souls are not annihilated, they return. They go endlessly back and forth, and they maintain alliances not only with the Calabria-based Ndrangheta and Sabbatean Kabbalah cults in eastern Poland, but with a shadowy New Jersey group that Department of Homeland Security officials believe is affiliated with the #Free Britney movement. Optometrist. Excellent. Can you read this, or is it too tiny? Patient squinting. Guessing, it's the height of the Scarfo-Ricobene mob war in Philadelphia in the early 80s. Brecht and Schoenberg are living together in Santa Monica, holed up in a motel room filled with pizza boxes, empty Coke cans, rubber tubing and thermometers, kitty litter, etc. The windows covered with aluminum foil. Optometrist. Just a moment. He switches lenses in the phoropter. Optometrist. How about now? Patient. The divine hermit's translucent white abdomen, constricted by the tight purple bands of his exoskeleton, swells to the size of a beach ball, leaving him unable to move. His tiny head and legs flail while his pulsating body is fed and cleaned by Chilezian mafia faction street soldiers. Optometrist. Nailed it. Patient. Chilezian mystics call the heart a wedding chapel, the hall of mirrors where the mafia warlord marries the divine hermit. The consummation of this marriage between these two aspects of one's own chimerical self is called the last orgy, and this last orgy, sometimes called the lady, or she's a lady, or oh, whoa, whoa, she's a lady, talking about that little lady, is said to occur simultaneously with death, or it is said to cause death. Unsurprisingly, the Chilezian word for human heart is the same as their word for men's room. Optometrist. And this? Patient. Some have compared the Bar Polpo to the Rainbow, the tavern in Silas Marner, and the men's room to Heidegger's Mountain Hut in the Black Forest. And this? Patient. From space, Chilezia actually looks like a map doodled in crayon on a placemat, with the words Chilezia and Kermunkachunk written in a child's print. Optometrist. And how about this? The origin story of the first divine hermit is that he drunkenly fell onto the subway tracks but was dragged to safety by a contingent of rats who nursed him back to health and inculcated him with the secret Gnostic wisdom. In another version, a hoarder, someone who was literally featured on the A&E reality series Hoarders, drunkenly passes out amid the squalor and filth of his kitchen and is borne away by thousands of cockroaches who bring him to their subterranean sanctum sanctorum, where they inculcate him via anus-to-mouth proctodial trophallaxis with the secret Gnostic wisdom. Both folktales identify aggregations of vermin as the reservoirs of Gnostic wisdom, always that valorization of the tiny, of the miniaturized. Remember, these are 12-tone origin stories, that is to say, they, etc., etc. The CMF Godfather Divine Hermit is first and foremost abnormal, a freak. This wizened, witty hero wanders in a zone suspended between patricide, one must always kill the father, and suicide, his choreographed self-annihilation. His slurred gibberish is an extraordinary mantra because he reconciles those oppositions within himself which are never reconciled on a human level, and because, well, just because. And those who shrink from his fierce, baleful countenance in life are astonished, for in death he appears like a child's top. Whereas a CMF street soldier's death gyre is like a figure skater's climactic spin, the death throes of a divine hermit more resemble a ballet dancer's pirouette on point, but at phenomenal speeds, centrifugally flinging the forensically identifiable features of his physiognomy, his irises and retinas, his fingerprints, the distinguishing marks on his genitalia, etc., into the void. It is through this extraordinary centrifuge that the individualized I is, to use the quaint lexicon of Chilesian theosophy, mated with a chihuahua, and becomes the atomized and undifferentiated I, which then, subjected to the fantastical torque of the pirouette, hurls away its body, leaving only that dot, that mark of its own subtraction from existence. It is a highly choreographed form of annihilatio, the accelerating speed of the pirouette jettisoning the corporeal attributes of the divine hermit and leaving nothing but that dimensionless and irreducible point of absolute indiscernibility, that punctuation mark, that period, which is both the source and perpetual reconstitution of all language. Optometrist and patient in unison. Hail Satan! Patient. One particularly memorable warlord was assassinated at a Nordstrom by a salesperson wielding a spray bottle of Joe Malone amber and patchouli cologne, which had been loaded with military-grade nerve agent. His wife, an aspiring actress who'd once worked at a sunglass kiosk in Newark Airport, when informed by police of her husband's death, seemed giddy, jumping up and down, pumping her fist in the air. That night she had a lavish party at her home, serving expensive champagne, caviar, etc. Quote, I wouldn't attach too much significance to all that, her attorney would later say. People have very different ways of grieving. She'd become Chancellor of the Exchequer thanks to the way she curated her armpits on Instagram. Another CMF capo was able to remotely switch on the laptop cameras of men masturbating to online porn and then blackmail them with threats of releasing the recorded footage of their orgasms. He smoked a jade inlaid vape made from the femur of a capybara and insisted on wearing only clothes that were Vanta black, the world's blackest black, absorbing 99% of light, making it the darkest pigment on Earth. Boy George DJ'd his son's bar mitzvah. Life was good until he was hit and killed by a woman pushing a double stroller through a Chipotle. Then there's the prominent Kramunkachunk commandante who was so pissed off about his son's shitty grades and SAT scores that he sent him off to the Ish Delish Deli to pick up an order of tater tot poutine, knowing he'd be attacked and probably killed on the piazza. Several days later, he invited to his home the 5 CMF thugs who'd indeed murdered his son and presented them each with a Peloton and tickets to the Book of Mormon. Some are just sad and nuts, like the itinerant Antinomian Zadik, who went by a single name, Sharpie. He's interviewed in the back seat of his car where he holds court, his arm wrapped around his, quote, wife, end of quote, a carpet rolled up to approximate a seated torso. Tavares' A Penny for Your Thoughts plays over and over again, a warped version like something from a carousel in a horror movie, as he numbly recalls driving the very same car as a teenager when in 1973 he backed over his little sister, killing her. She'd been playing tea party in the driveway, pretending to serve little scones, saying grace, her little hands clasped in prayer when she died. Now he's a psycho, compulsively cracking the joint of his big toe, quote, typing, end of quote, on a, quote, laptop, end of quote, that's really just a plastic fast food clamshell container. So there's no actual screenplay income and no health insurance to defray the cost of the Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease he develops. And there, but for the grace of God. Ironically, he was euthanized by firing squad on a runway at Bob Hope Airport in Burbank, California. Don't Let This Robot Suck Your Dick Productions is not only the most significant production house in Silesia, but also its sole content provider. And that includes, of course, the feed to the spoken word karaoke screens in the Bar Polpo. The Chilesian Mafia faction conducts constant cyber attacks on DLTRSYD networks, causing significant disruptions of what people are reading aloud on Father-Daughter Night.